So, very good to see everyone again. So please now, everyone online, cameras on, please. Come on, cameras on so I can keep my beady eye on you. Zoom user, everyone. And everyone here, everyone online, please now sit up well. Good posture. Nice straight back. Body and mind alert. And you close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, you leave everything behind that you've been doing, thinking about, worrying about, everything. You put it all down and you leave it. And you endeavor now through this evening to keep your attention here and now, and to remain absolutely still. And we commence as usual by bringing to mind the Buddha, reminding ourselves of our great teacher and inspiration, recollecting his perfect mind. And that perfect mind of the Buddha's was a mind that was completely free of any kind of corruption or defilement, and even more than that, far away, far distant from anything of that kind. It was a mind, too, of infinite compassion. He was truly an incredible being, perfect in knowledge and conduct. Now, when you remember the Buddha, when you happen to see a Buddha image or picture of the Buddha, be inspired to do what you can to cleanse your mind too of all greed, hatred, and delusion, and free yourselves of your suffering. And remember that as a great kindness, a great service that you do yourself and the world. And so remember to be kind and caring of yourself and of others, rejoicing in your merits, your good qualities, and appreciating the same in others. And at the same time, accepting things. Now we have to take a moment or two to remember that we're all getting older, that probably none of us are in perfect health, and we're all inclined at times to become unwell. And we're all dying. These three: aging, sickness, and death, are what are known as the divine messengers. And we should take heed of them. And try to make sure that we use the time that we have as well as we can to live skillfully, to be kind and tolerant, and to investigate and cultivate our minds, to develop understanding of ourselves, of the nature of our being. So now, determined to use this evening to the very best of your ability, determined to be still, now become mindful and aware of just what you're doing at this moment. Of just sitting and breathing. And perhaps thinking, dreaming, wondering, but try to narrow the focus to just sitting and breathing. And gradually let it just be the breathing. Now be careful to know just where and how you perceive the breath. It might be near the upper lip. It could be over the heart. It could even be the movement of your abdomen as you breathe in and breathe out. But wherever it is, however you feel or perceive the breath, now keep your attention just there. Hold it there. And be mindful and aware of each incoming breath, each outgoing breath. Now remember that if your mindfulness of the breathing is interrupted in any way by any thought, feeling, ache, pain, sound, anything at all, stay quite still, just as you are. No need to respond in any other way than by simply being mindful of whatever it is, of just being aware of it. As soon as you notice it, just knowing it, the thinking, the feeling, whatever it is, and then letting it go. And when you've let it go, you find the breath again, and again you try to keep your mind mindful and aware of each in-breath and each out-breath. So you've all been sitting very well, very still. Please keep it going. Stay quite just as you are. But during the next few minutes, while I'm talking, just listen. And understand that listening is an important practice. The Buddha once told a certain person that all he needed to do was, when walking, to just walk, when sitting, to just sit. In fact, whatever he was doing, to just do that, which seems a very simple thing. But if you observe yourselves, I suspect you will find that when you were walking, when you were sitting, you were also thinking, dreaming. When you're walking to get somewhere, often your mind is travelling ahead of you. We don't usually just do anything. But it's an important practice to try to develop. And to just listen means just listening. So don't try and remember what I say. Don't find yourself getting in some kind of argument in your mind about something I've said. Just listen. So, earlier on in the evening, I asked you to be mindful, to sit up well, to be mindful of a good posture. And I asked you to be mindful of just what you were doing, of sitting and breathing and anything else that might have been going on in you, like thinking, wondering, remembering, and so on. And I imagine that all of you know very well that mindfulness is considered a very important practice, especially within Buddhism. The word which is now usually translated as mindfulness, sati, the Pali word, the Buddhist word is sati, originally meant remembering. And you have to remember that mindfulness carries an element of remembering with it. So we have to remember where we are. Remember to be present. Remember to be mindful and aware. Now, in the Buddha's great discourse on mindfulness, he repeatedly speaks about being mindful and aware. That means you're mindful of the object, of one thing, but aware of the context. So, when we cultivate mindfulness, we cultivate it in this way, that we are mindful of whatever it is, but we are aware of what surrounds it, of the context. Now, mindfulness crops up in a number of teachings that the Buddha gave. Most importantly, it's there in the Noble Eightfold Path. It's also one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. It's one of the 5 faculties, one of the 5 powers. Over and over again, mindfulness appears. It's a very important part of Buddhist teaching and practice. And at the beginning of his famous talk on mindfulness, he speaks of it as the one direct way for the purification of beings, for the realization of freedom and enlightenment. Now we have to remember, and this is important when we look at the Noble Eightfold Path, which I'd better explain to those of you who don't know much about this, is in fact the 4th of what are known as the 4 Noble Truths. The first of these is suffering. Our normal, everyday experience of things. And the second, the cause. There is a reason for our predicament. And that reason, that cause, is craving and attachment. And the third of these 4 truths is that there is a way out, that suffering can be ended, can be overcome. The prognosis is good. And the 4th, the way to do it, the Noble Eightfold Path. And that path opens by setting out what it's all about. It's about the realization of these four truths. At the very beginning, we have to be able to accept that we have a problem. And to deal with that problem, we have to change our attitude, the way that we think. And following on from that, the way that we speak, act, and manage a livelihood. And then on that foundation, with what I like to call the creation of a safe space, we can work on our minds. And when we work on training our minds, clearly we have to make an effort. Our normal state is to easily fall foul of greed and aversion, of misunderstanding. We make all manner of mistakes so very easily. So we have to make an effort to improve our minds. And that effort involves cultivating mindfulness and stabilizing our minds. So mindfulness, when we analyze the path, when we look at it, has a very important part to play. Because to practice so that we are careful of our speech, of what we do, of our livelihood and so on, means that we have to be mindful. It encourages us all the time to cultivate mindfulness and awareness. In his great discourse on mindfulness, the Buddha spoke of being mindful of one's body, mindful of one's feelings, mindful of one's mind or state of mind, and mindful of what we find in our minds, and in particular, what he had been pointing to in his teaching. When we look at this, when we read it over and again, we realize that what he was saying, in effect, was to be mindful of anything and everything. When he spoke of being mindful of the body, for example, he mentioned being mindful of the breathing, just as you've been practicing this evening. He spoke of being mindful of one's actions, of stretching one's arm, and so forth. He spoke also about being mindful of the structure of one's body, of how it's composed of many parts, and then of the nature of one's body, that it eventually dies and is got rid of. It's of no more use. And having been got rid of, having been abandoned, it gradually breaks up, rots, and what had been so important and valuable to us becomes repulsive. Our feelings, pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, our state of mind, how our mind can be a generous mind, it can be a tight mind, it can be affected in so many ways. And then, very basically, of what he taught, particularly these four noble truths. Mindfulness and awareness heightens our experience of things. It enables us, first of all, to remember, to watch ourselves. Now, this evening I asked you to be mindful of your breathing. And then I said, after a little while, if your mind wanders, if you suddenly realize that you're thinking or feeling or you've got some ache or pain, or to just watch it, to be mindful of it. And I'm very strict here about sitting and being still. It's so very easy to sit and then you feel an ache or an itch, to fiddle about and fidget but you do no good by that. If you remain still, you can watch those experiences. You can watch and discover your reaction, your aversion, or your fear even. And all the time, you're learning about yourself. Practicing mindfulness is very instructive, and mostly about the nature of your being. So when you watch, for example, some ache, people are always complaining about discomfort sitting like this. Well, of course, we experience discomfort a lot, and usually we respond to it by moving, by getting up or stretching or something. But now you can't do that. All you can do is be mindful and aware of those feelings, of that experience. And if you can just distance yourself from it and cultivate what is sometimes referred to as bare awareness, what do you discover? You begin to see for yourself the nature of your experience, that it's not still, that it's changing, that it's impermanent, that it's coming and going. And especially if you don't feed it, if you don't worry about it, keep on thinking about it, it disappears. Even aches and pains at least reduce, and sometimes just go. But other experiences like anger and irritation and so forth will all have that nature. You discover that these are really and truly movements of your mind. Now, you can believe me or not, but when you practice, when you watch yourself, you discover all this for yourself and experientially. It's an experiential knowledge that arises, and that's very important. Now, the Buddha said that we are characterized by impermanence, unsatisfactoriness or suffering, and not self, not me, not mine. These three are known as the three characteristics of existence, which we don't really normally see or understand. even when they're explained to us. We certainly don't react to things as being impermanent and insubstantial. We give them a reality. And when we give things a reality, then we have desire or aversion. That desire and aversion, of course, depends on delusion, on ignorance. And so arises our suffering. Mindfulness and awareness breaks into that. It's an invaluable practice, and I recommend it to you. And that's enough for me, from me, for tonight. So we'll just sit for a few more moments, and during these closing moments, please bring loving kindness to mind. Loving kindness for yourself and for all beings everywhere. May you and all beings be well and happy. May you and all beings be free from all suffering. May you and all beings realize for yourselves the secure peace of Nibbana. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivade Swakato Bhagavanta Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavanto Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. So thank you all very much for coming. Very good to see you all. I hope you have a good week and we'll meet again soon.